she wouldn't look at him. That's what Jin-woo noticed first. The new night nurse, Amara, according to her badge, kept her eyes carefully down as she checked his vitals. Professional, efficient, but deliberately avoiding his gaze in a way that felt less like respect and more like fear. Or maybe hiding something. Jin-woo had learned to read people. In his world, survival depended on noticing what others missed. The small tells, the inconsistencies, the moments when someone's behavior didn't match their words. And this nurse, with her careful movements and downcast eyes, was screaming inconsistency. She was good at her job. He could tell from how smoothly she worked, how gently she handled the foreline. But she was also terrified. Not of him specifically. Of something. Someone. And Jin-woo wanted to know what. How long have you worked here? He kept his voice gentle. Non-threatening. The tone he used with people he wanted to feel safe. Not the one he used in business. Not the cold command that made men twice his size flinch. 3 months, Mr. Park. Her voice was soft. Professional. Still not meeting his eyes. Do you like it? The work. Sir. Very much. That's good. It's important to enjoy what you do. He paused. You can look at me, you know. I don't bite. At least not medical staff. A small smile flickered across her face. Brief. Barely there. But genuine. Then it was gone, replaced by that careful neutrality. I'm sorry, sir. Just focused on my work. No apology necessary. I appreciate focus. He watched her finish adjusting his medication drip. Noticed how she moved, deliberately, like someone who'd learned to take up as little space as possible. Like someone who'd been taught that visibility was dangerous. How's the injury healing? The one on your arm. She froze. Just for a second. Then resumed her work like nothing had happened. I'm not injured, sir. My mistake. Must have been a shadow. But it hadn't been. Jin-woo had seen the edge of a bruise peeking out from under her sleeve when she'd reached up to adjust the four. Dark purple. Recent. Shaped like fingers. Like someone had grabbed her heart. And she was lying about it. The question was why. Amara finished her work quickly after that. Professional smile. Polite nod. Gone before Jin-woo could ask anything else. Leaving him alone in the private hospital room with his thoughts and his questions and the certainty that something was very wrong with the nurse who wouldn't meet his eyes. Jin-woo had been in the hospital for 3 days. Routine surgery. Nothing serious. Just damage from an old injury that had finally required medical intervention. His organization could have brought doctors to him, they usually did. But this time he'd needed specialists. Equipment. The kind of care that required a hospital stay. So here he was in a private wing, surrounded by security, being cared for by staff who'd been vetted and paid well for their discretion. Most of the nurses were comfortable around him. They knew who he was. Everyone did. The young Korean man who ran the most powerful organization in the city. Who controlled territories and money and lives. Who smiled politely and spoke softly and had people disappeared when they crossed him. They knew. But they also knew he didn't hurt medical staff. Didn't threaten people who were just doing their jobs. So they relaxed. Joked with him. Treated him like a patient instead of a threat. Amar was different. She'd started her rotation 2 nights ago. Quiet. Competent. Professional. But scared. Jin-woo had watched her carefully during her shifts. Noticed how she moved through the room like she was trying to be invisible. How she spoke in that soft, deferential voice. How she never ever met his eyes. At first he'd thought maybe it was him. Maybe she was more afraid than the others. Maybe being a black woman in a Korean criminal's hospital room felt more dangerous than it did for the Korean nurses. But that didn't explain the bruises. The fresh ones he'd glimpsed on her wrist yesterday. The healing ones he'd spotted on her collarbone when her scrub collar shifted. The careful way she moved her left side like her ribs hurt. Someone was hurting her. Someone was putting hands on this gentle, competent nurse and making her afraid. And for some reason Jin-woo couldn't fully explain that made him angry. He called his head of security after Amara left. I need information on someone. Amara. He glanced at the whiteboard where staff wrote their names. Amara Williams. Works night shift nursing. I want to know everything. Family. Living situation. Relationships. Finances. Everything. Quietly. Boss, is there a problem? I'm not sure yet. But I want to know. His security chief knew better than to ask more questions. I'll have it by morning. Jin-woo settled back against his pillows. He should let it go. Should focus on his own recovery. His own business. His own problems. This nurse wasn't his responsibility. Wasn't his concern. If she was in a bad situation, that was unfortunate, but not his problem to solve. He had enough complications in his life without adding a stranger's troubles. But he couldn't let it go. Something about the way she'd frozen when he mentioned the injury. The way fear had flickered across her face before she'd hidden it. The careful neutrality she wore like armor. Reminded him of his sister. Before she died. Before the man who'd hurt her had finally gone too far. Before Jin-woo had been too late to save her. He'd sworn then that he'd never ignore signs again. Never assume someone else would help. Never be too late. And Amara Williams was showing signs. Clear, unmistakable signs that someone was hurting her. That she was in danger. That she needed help she wasn't asking for. The information came back by morning. Comprehensive. Vivid. Exactly what Jin-woo had requested. Amara Williams. 29 years old. Single mother. Daughter aged 7. Nursing degree from State University. Clean record. Good employee reviews. Lived in a modest apartment on the south side. Finances were tight but managed. She was dating someone. Marcus Chin. Worked security at a local club. That's where things got interesting. Marcus Chin had a record. Assault. Domestic violence. Charges dropped when victims refused to testify. 3 different women over 5 years. All similar pattern. Charming at first. Then controlling. Then violent. Then the victims disappeared, not dead, just gone. Moved away. Changed their names. Ran. The kind of pattern that screamed abuser. The kind of man Jin-woo would have removed from his organization immediately. The kind of man who was clearly hurting Amara and getting away with it because she was trapped. Because single mothers with tight finances couldn't just leave. Because she probably thought she had to endure it. Had to survive it. Had no one who would help. She was wrong about that last part. Jin-woo made some calls. Quiet ones. To people who owed him favors. Who could gather more information without being noticed. By that evening he had a fuller picture. Marcus worked at Club Azure. One of Jin-woo's properties, though he didn't advertise ownership. Marcus had been hired by the manager. Had seemed professional. Had good references. But several female staff had complained about him. Nothing official. Just whispers. Discomfort. The kind of complaints that got ignored because they weren't serious enough. Because women's fear wasn't taken seriously until it was too late. It was about to be taken very seriously. If you've ever seen something wrong and wondered whether it's your place to intervene, whether you should speak up or stay quiet, you understand the choice Jin-woo was facing. Sometimes staying quiet costs more than getting involved. Amara came on shift that evening. Same professional demeanor. Same careful movements. But Jin-woo noticed new things now that he knew what to look for. The way she winced when she bent to check his incision. The careful makeup that didn't quite hide the shadow of a bruise near her temple. The moment of hesitation before she entered his room, like she was bracing herself. Preparing. Getting into character as the competent, unafraid nurse. Good evening, Mr. Park. How are you feeling today? Better. The pain is much less. Your colleagues tell me I'll be discharged tomorrow. That's wonderful. You've healed very well. She was checking his chart. Not looking at him. Same pattern as before. Amara. He said her name gently. Waited until she had to acknowledge him. Can I ask you something? Off the record. Just human to human. She tensed. Of course, sir. Are you safe? The question hung in the air. Direct. And ambiguous. Amara's hands stilled on the chart. Her expression carefully neutral. But Jin-woo saw the fear. The calculation. The moment she considered telling the truth before deciding against it. I'm fine, sir. Thank you for asking. I don't think you are. I think someone is hurting you. And I think you feel like you can't tell anyone. Like you have to handle it alone. Like asking for help would make things worse. Am I wrong? Silence. Long, heavy. Amara's eyes finally met his. Just for a moment. And in that moment Jin-woo saw everything. The fear. The exhaustion. The desperate hope that someone had noticed. That someone cared. That she wasn't as alone as she felt. Then she looked away. Back to safety. Back to denial. I appreciate your concern, Mr. Park. But I'm fine. Really. Hey. But if you ever need help, if you ever need someone to intervene, you can ask me. I have resources. I have reach. I can make problems go away. Permanently if necessary. Do you understand what I'm offering? Amara's voice caught. I can't. I have a daughter. If I make him angry, if I try to leave, he's threatened. She stopped. Shook her head. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Please forget it. I won't forget it. And you're right to be scared. Men like him are dangerous. But you're more dangerous than you think. Because you're not alone anymore. Whether you asked for help or not, you have it now. Do you understand? Amara looked at him again. Really looked. Trying to figure out if he was serious. If this powerful criminal who controlled the city was genuinely offering to help her. A nobody nurse with an abusive boyfriend and limited options. It didn't make sense. Men like Jinwoo didn't care about people like her. Didn't notice. Didn't intervene. Except he had noticed. Had seen what everyone else missed. Had offered help she desperately needed but couldn't accept. Not yet. Not until she believed it was real. Why do you care? The question was barely above a whisper. Because someone should. Because you deserve better. Because I can help. And because, Jinwoo paused. Because I was too late to help someone once. Someone who needed intervention and didn't get it. I won't make that mistake again. Not if I can help it. Not with you. Tears filled Amara's eyes. She blinked them back. Professional composure reasserting itself. Thank you, Mr. Park. I need to finish my rounds. Please rest. You'll need your strength for discharge tomorrow. She left quickly. Before Jinwoo could say more. Before the tears could fall. Before she could break down in front of a patient. But Jinwoo knew she'd hurt him. Knew the offer was planted. Knew that when things got bad enough, and they always did with men like Marcus, she'd remember. Would reach out. Would take the help she needed. Until then, Jinwoo would do what he did best. Investigate. Plan. Prepare. Make sure that when Amara was ready, he could move immediately. Could protect her. Could remove the threat permanently and without question. That's what power was for. Not to control people. Not to take what you wanted. But to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. To use strength correctly. To be the intervention that made a difference. Jinwoo had learned that lesson the hard way. Had paid for it with his sister's life. He wouldn't pay that price again. Not for Amara. Not if he could help it. Jinwoo was discharged the next day. Healing well. Ready to return to business. But he didn't forget about Amara Williams. Didn't let it drop. Had people watching. Discreetly. Making sure she was safe. Making sure Marcus didn't escalate. Making sure that if intervention became necessary, Jinwoo would know immediately. It was an unusual allocation of resources. His men didn't understand why the boss was so invested in protecting a random nurse. But they knew better than to question. They just did what they were told. Watched. Reported. Waited for orders. Those orders came 2 weeks later. A call from the hospital. Not to Jinwoo directly, that would have been inappropriate. But to his organization. A request for emergency assistance. The caller? Amara Williams. Using the number Jinwoo had left with hospital administration. The coded phrase that meant she needed help. No. Immediately. Without hesitation. Jinwoo mobilized instantly. Where is she? Her apartment. She's locked in the bathroom. Marcus came home drunk. Started hitting her. She managed to get away. But he's threatening to break down the door. Threatening her daughter. She's terrified. Send a team. No. I want Marcus Chin removed from that apartment and brought to the warehouse. Unharmed but secured. I want Amara and her daughter safe. I want medical if she needs it. I want protection around them starting immediately. No one touches them. No one approaches them. They're under my direct protection. Clear. His boss. We're moving now. Jinwoo followed in his own car. Against protocol. Against his security team's advice. But he needed to see this. Needed to be there when Amara realized help had arrived. When she understood his promise had been real. When she stopped being alone in her fear and started being protected. It mattered in a way Jinwoo couldn't fully articulate. Not love, he barely knew her. But connection. Recognition. The certainty that this woman mattered. That her safety mattered. That failing her wasn't an option. The apartment building was modest. Working class. The kind of place where neighbors minded their business and police response was slow. Jinwoo's team was already inside when he arrived. Efficient. Professional. They'd removed Marcus, who was currently zip-tied and furious in the back of a van, and were securing the apartment. Making sure no additional threats existed. Making sure Amara and her daughter were actually safe. Jinwoo found them in the bathroom. Amara sitting on the floor, her daughter in her lap. Both crying. Both terrified. Both staring at the door like they expected Marcus to break through any second. Jinwoo knocked gently. Amara? It's Jinwoo Park. You're safe now. Marcus is gone. My people have secured the area. Can I come in? Silence. Then the lock clicked. The door opened slowly. Amara looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. You came. I promised I would. Are you hurt? Is your daughter okay? I'm fine. Zara's fine. He didn't get to her. I made sure. But he was so angry. He said, her voice broke. Thank you. I didn't know who else to call. I was so scared. You did exactly right. Calling me was the smartest thing you could have done. Jinwoo crouched down to their level. Kept his voice gentle. Non-threatening. I need you to listen carefully. You're under my protection now. That means Marcus can't hurt you. Can't come near you. Can't threaten you. He's going to disappear. Not dead, though Jinwoo considered it. But removed. Far away. Where he can't find you. Where he can't hurt anyone else. Do you understand? What about his friends? His connections? He'll send someone. No. He won't. Because everyone who matters will know you're protected. That touching you means answering to me. That your safety is my personal concern. No one will risk that. You're safe, Amar. Truly safe. For the first time in however long he's been hurting you. You're safe. Amara stared at him. Processing. Trying to believe. Then she started crying. Really crying. The kind of sobbing that comes from release. From relief. From the recognition that the nightmare was over. That she'd survived. That her daughter had survived. That help had actually come. Jinwoo stayed there. Quiet. Present. Letting her cry. Letting her process. Letting her daughter cling to her and feel safe in a way she probably hadn't in months. This was what power was for. This moment. This protection. This transformation from terror to safety. This was worth everything. When Amara could finally speak again, Jinwoo helped them up. Got them out of the bathroom. Into the living room where his team had cleaned up. Removing evidence of violence, making the space feel safer. One of his people had brought medical supplies. A female team member checked Amara's injuries while Jinwoo distracted Zara with gentle questions about school and her favorite subjects. Normal things. Safe things. Things that reminded them both that life existed beyond fear. The injuries weren't severe. Bruises. A split lip. Sore ribs but nothing broken. Amara had gotten lucky. Or maybe she'd just gotten used to protecting herself. To knowing how to minimize damage. To surviving. That would change now. She wouldn't have to survive anymore. She could live. Really live. Without fear. Without violence. Without the constant calculation of how to avoid making someone angry. What happens now? Amara asked quietly. Zara had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from fear and tears. I can't stay here. He knows where I live. Even if he's gone, I'll always be afraid here. You're moving. Tonight. I have a property. Secure, protected, furnished. It's yours. For as long as you need it. No rent. No strings. Just safety. Your daughter's school is nearby. The hospital is 20 minutes. Everything you need. My security will be watching. No one gets near you without my approval. You can breathe, Amara. You can rest. You can start rebuilding. I can't accept. You can. You will. This isn't charity. This is me using resources correctly. Using power the way it should be used. To protect people. To create safety. To fix problems. You're not a burden. You're not in debt. You're just someone who needed help and asked for it. So, okay. Amara nodded. Tears streaming again. Hey, thank you. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. Just be safe. Just heal. Just live without fear. That's enough. They moved Amara and Zara that night. Packed essentials. Left everything else. Jin Woo would have the apartment cleared and her lease terminated. Fresh start. Clean break. No ties to the place where Marcus had hurt her. No memories to haunt her. Just forward. Just safety. Just the knowledge that powerful people were watching. That she mattered. That her daughter mattered. That they were worth protecting. Worth valuing. Worth all the resources Jin Woo was allocating to ensure their safety. Marcus Chin disappeared. Not killed, Jin Woo had promised Amara that. But removed. Thoroughly. Permanently. He woke up on a cargo ship bound for Southeast Asia with new identification and clear instructions. Stay gone. Start over. Never return. Never contact Amara. Never threaten anyone again. Or the mercy ends. The choice was his. Most men took the mercy. It was better than the alternative. Word spread quickly. The Korean boss had personally intervened to protect a hospital nurse. Had removed her abuser. Had given her sanctuary. The message was clear to everyone in Jin Woo's world. Women under his protection were untouchable. Abuse wasn't tolerated. Violence against vulnerable people had consequences. Swift. Permanent. Non-negotiable. It was good optics. Good leadership. Good business. But more than that, it was right. It was using power correctly. It was being the person Jin Woo wanted to be instead of the person his world expected. Over the following weeks, Jin Woo checked on Amara regularly. Not hovering, that would have been uncomfortable. Just occasional messages. Making sure she had what she needed. Making sure the security wasn't intrusive. Making sure she felt safe instead of watched. Making sure this protection didn't become another cage. Another form of control. It was a delicate balance. One Jin Woo navigated carefully. Amara settled into her new life gradually. Returned to work at the hospital. Enrolled Zara in a better school. Started therapy to process the trauma. Started rebuilding confidence that had been systematically destroyed. Started believing she deserved safety. Deserved peace. Deserved a life without violence. It was slow. Healing always was. But she was doing it. Actually doing it. Moving forward instead of just surviving. She and Jin Woo developed a connection. Not romantic, not yet, maybe not ever. But real. Built on trust. On recognition. On the certainty that he saw her. Truly saw her. Not as a victim to save. Not as a conquest to pursue. But as a person. Someone worth knowing. Worth protecting. Worth valuing. That recognition was everything to someone who'd been invisible for so long. Who'd been treated as less than human by someone who claimed to love her. Jin Woo saw her humanity. Honored it. Protected it. And that mattered more than anything else. Why did you help me? Amara asked one evening. They were having coffee, neutral territory, just conversation. Jin Woo had been careful not to use his power to pressure her into anything. Just offered friendship. Support. The space to heal. You didn't know me. I was just a nurse. Just someone passing through your hospital room. Why did you care? Jin Woo considered the question. The real answer. The one he rarely shared. My sister died when I was 22. Murdered by her boyfriend. Someone she loved. Someone who hurt her repeatedly. He hid it. Made excuses. Believed she could fix him. Believed she deserved it. Believed asking for help would make things worse. I didn't see the signs. Didn't recognize what was happening. Didn't intervene until it was too late. I swore then that I'd never miss the signs again. Never assume someone else would help. Never be too late. So when I saw your bruises, when you avoided my eyes, when you flinched, I saw my sister. Saw what I'd missed before. And I refused to miss it again. Refused to be too late. Does that answer your question? Amara's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry about your sister. So am I. Every day. But helping you, helping women like you, it's not about guilt. It's not about redemption. It's about using the second chance I have. The opportunity to see clearly. To act decisively. To be the intervention that makes a difference. You gave me that opportunity. So if anyone should be thanking someone, it's me thanking you. For trusting me. For letting me help. For giving me the chance to do something right. You did everything right. You saved my life. My daughter's life. You gave us a future we wouldn't have had. That's not just intervention. That's everything. They sat in comfortable silence after that. Two people connected by trauma and healing. By power used correctly. by recognition and respect. It wasn't romance, wasn't passion, was something deeper, quieter, more permanent. The kind of bond that formed when someone saw your pain and responded with protection instead of exploitation. When power was used to create safety instead of control. When connection was built on honesty instead of manipulation. If this story makes your chest feel tight, if you understand what it means to finally be seen after being invisible, to be protected after being vulnerable, maybe you know why some connections matter more than others. Why being noticed can change everything. Months passed. Amara thrived. Her confidence returned. Her smile came easier. Her daughter flourished in her new school. They built a life free from fear. Free from violence. Free from the constant calculation of survival. Jinwoo watched from a respectful distance, making sure protection remained real. Making sure no threats emerged. Making sure Amara knew she could ask for help if she needed it. But mostly letting her live, letting her heal, letting her be free. The hospital staff noticed the change. Amara stood taller, spoke more confidently, made eye contact, advocated for her patients, for herself, for what was right. She wasn't invisible anymore, wasn't hiding, was fully present in her own life in a way she'd never been before. And people respected that, responded to it, recognized her worth. Not because a powerful man protected her, but because she'd reclaimed herself, rebuilt herself, become someone who knew her value and demanded recognition. That transformation was everything, was the whole point, was why Jinwoo had intervened in the first place. Jinwoo's organization noticed too. The boss who'd always been strategic but distant, who'd used power efficiently but coldly, was different now, more aware, more present. More focused on protecting people instead of just controlling territory. More interested in building culture than maintaining fear. His men didn't fully understand the change. But they saw the results. Lower turnover. Higher loyalty. Better reputation. People wanted to work for someone who valued them. Who saw them. Who used power correctly. Who was good leadership. Good business. Good humanity. One evening, a year after Marcus's removal, Jinwoo and Amara sat on her apartment balcony. The one he'd given her. The safe space she'd transformed into home. Zara was asleep inside. They were drinking tea. Talking about everything and nothing. Comfortable silence interspersed with easy conversation. The kind of intimacy that didn't require romance. Just recognition. Connection. Mutual respect. "I've been thinking," Amara said quietly, "about what you said. About your sister. About seeing signs. About intervening. I want to do that too. Want to help women who are where I was. Want to be the person who sees them. Who offers help. Who makes intervention possible. What do you think?" Jinwoo smiled. "I think that's exactly right. I think you understand power now. Real power. Not control. Not domination. But protection. Safety. Creating space for healing. You'd be good at it. Incredible at it. What do you need?" "Resources. Space. Support. I'm thinking a shelter. A place women can go when they leave. When they need safety. When they need time to rebuild. A place where they're seen. Where they're valued. Where they're protected while they heal. Like you did for me. But formalized. Permanent. Available to everyone who needs it. Done. I'll fund it. Provide security. Make sure it's sustainable. You run it. You build the culture. You create the safety. You be the intervention. Does that work?" "Yes. Thank you. For everything. For seeing me. For protecting me. For giving me the chance to heal. For letting me pay it forward. For understanding that power should protect people. You changed my life, Jinwoo. Let me change others. You already are. Every day. Every person who sees you standing tall. Every woman who realizes she doesn't have to stay. Every child who grows up without violence. You're changing things just by existing. By surviving. By becoming someone who won't stay invisible. That's everything, Amara. That's the whole point." They sat together until late. Planning. Dreaming. Building something that would help countless women. That would formalize the protection Jinwoo offered. That would create safety beyond his personal intervention. It was legacy. Purpose. The transformation of trauma into meaning. Of survival into service. Of being seen into seeing others. That's how healing worked. how justice worked, how power was supposed to work. Not hoarding it, not using it selfishly, but sharing it, extending it, creating safety that rippled outward and touched everyone who needed it. The shelter opened 6 months later. Funded generously, secured completely, staffed compassionately. Amara ran it with the same competence she'd brought to nursing. The same gentle strength. The same recognition that everyone deserved safety, deserved respect, deserved to be seen. Women came, found sanctuary, healed, moved forward, built lives free from violence, free from fear, free from invisibility. They learned their worth, reclaimed their power, became people who stood tall, who demanded recognition, who wouldn't accept abuse, who knew help existed, who understood protection was real, who'd been seen and refused to be invisible ever again. Jean Wu visited occasionally. Not to control, Amara ran the shelter autonomously, but to support, to remind everyone that powerful people cared, that protection was permanent, that this wasn't charity but justice, that vulnerable people mattered, that their safety was worth defending, worth fighting for, worth all the resources being allocated. His presence carried weight, sent messages, made sure everyone understood this shelter was protected, that the women here were protected, that anyone who threatened them answered to him. That message alone kept most threats away, made safety real, made healing possible. Years passed. The shelter grew. Amara's reputation grew. Jean Wu's organization grew. All of it connected. All of it built on that first moment of recognition. When Jean Wu had noticed a nurse avoiding eye contact, had seen beyond professional demeanor to pain beneath, had decided that warranted intervention, that protecting her mattered, that using his power correctly meant creating safety, that being strong meant defending vulnerable people. That recognition, that choice had changed everything, had transformed one life, had created ripples that touched hundreds, had proven that power when used correctly built more than empires. It built hope. It built healing. It built futures that would have been impossible without intervention, without someone seeing, without someone caring enough to act. If you've made it this far, if you understand what it means to be truly seen, to matter to someone powerful enough to change everything, maybe you're someone who values protection over power, connection over control, and recognizes that the strongest people are those who defend the vulnerable. That's not weakness. That's everything. Amara never returned to the hospital. The shelter became her calling, her purpose, her way of transforming trauma into meaning. Jean Wu supported her completely, not just financially, but emotionally, as friend, as partner in creating safety, as someone who understood that their connection, built on recognition and protection, was more valuable than romance could ever be. They were family, chosen family, connected by trauma survived and healing achieved, and the certainty that they'd both become better people because they'd met. Because Jean Wu had noticed. Because Amara had trusted. Because protection had been offered and accepted and formalized into something that helped countless others. That was legacy. That was purpose. That was power used correctly. And it was everything they'd both needed without realizing it.